The only thing we really paid for is the police
I'm
department.
taking it all in right now. But
Yeah.
The only thing that's mine is, I got, these are what the state premium is.
oh,
You can add yours now. They do electric, they do parks. The last one is like our office, stuff like that. They keep track of that, which is nice.
yeah, no, I'm all for that.
This is the Euro stuff that, emails already after all, way before all this COVID. So
Okay.
I signed this right.
And I checked around.
That's all I
Cars,
Yeah.
cheapest car at the time, vehicle, 33,000, and the truck's 26.
Yeah, that's why Tom's drainage is on here.
Alright,
Yeah, I don't know that I'm 100% sold on it. I mean, I don't really get the significance of the train.
Yeah, it looks like Tom's tank engine, but it's just, anyway. Boy. I got that, trust me. Figure it all in the middle. Not in city.
Call the Oglesby City Council working meeting to order.
Augubright,
Here.
Cullinan,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Yeski,
here.
Rivara.
Here. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I've got to ask for public comments on agenda items only. Number 5 on the agenda, discuss potential streets/roads to be repaired this upcoming year.
So one of the documents you got at your thing there is the draft that I've been kind of working on. The only person that had an advanced look at it was Tommy, because we had a meeting yesterday. So we actually got no streets or new storm sewers or alleys or anything like that done last year. And that's mostly because of the Columbia job that came up. We got the grant in for it. So a couple new things have been added to that. As you can see, the list is quite extensive. They range from, streets that obviously just have some pothole issues to ones that also merge with water line issues and things like that. So there is quite a bit to get done. I'm not saying everything on the list of priority 1 has to get completed. But the reason I'd like to wait on this stuff is we're waiting on 2 major things. The first one is if we get the Rebuild Illinois grant. If we get that grant, the 2 biggest ticket items on here is going to get solved, which is fantastic. If we do not get that grant, we're going to have some hard discussions about how much stuff we actually can get done on this list. If we get it, not only the 2 big items get taken care of, but we'll actually have funds to take care of quite a bit of other things. The second big item we're waiting on here is, one of the new items I added was the water line that's on School Avenue. Obviously, it broke quite a few times this year. There's a lot of issues with it. The thing is, that area was in the qualifying community block development grant zone. At least 80% of it was last year. So because of the new surveys and stuff that went around, the poll, whatever they call it, the new low to moderate income area zones have not been identified yet. We're supposed to get that at the very beginning of this year sometime. So the moment I get that, I'll know if that area qualifies for School Avenue. If it does, that's another area that we'll be good to go with. If not, we're gonna have to have some more hard conversations about what we can get done with our funds. As of right now, we got about 300,000 in our motor fuel tax fund. Motor fuel tax can only be work for roads and storm sewers. Still can't do water lines with that. And depending if we have to use fixed water lines and stuff like that, that's not in the TIF zone, then that's obviously gonna have to come from the water fund. As you can see, the costs of some of these are so large that it'll drain that very quickly. So I'm not trying to put this off, but I think we need to have this conversation after we hear 2 things. One, if we get the grant, or at least the grant status, and then what qualifies for the community block development.
And do you know when we would get the grant?
So originally, the grant was supposed to be this fall, or this last fall. Because of COVID and everything got delayed. I was able to take advantage of, because of the new breaks that we had, I was able to get some letters from businesses, the schools, and I sent in some supplemental information to the board to get, hopefully it gets reviewed and will looked at favorably. However, there is a massive number of packages, so I'm leery of what's gonna come back. But the answer that they put on the website is it's supposed to be early 2021.
Jason, is that money, I'm assuming that's state-funded money?
That's what I'm worried
Correct.
about.
So I guess the question then becomes, you know, just like that letter I sent out to everybody about Shug's grant, you know, for tearing down the Butkus house, and you're gonna get another letter on Doran, because I'm trying to move forward with that. You know, Shug mentioned to me, she said, we got that, I don't know, 49,000, so, you know, we should be able to use up all that. We may even, you know, probably even exceed that if we got all, you know, if we were tearing down Doran and tearing down Butkus and tearing down the Schmidt, we, you know, easily could be even over that. But she cautioned me, she said, Jim, this is, you know, state money, and she said the governor is talking about a $700 million hit to the DCEO budget, so I don't know, you know, how that's gonna fall out.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too many details here. There is a little bit better news as well. If we're running on a time constraint, our city engineer got some, I hate to speak for him here, but he got some information on, from the state that's doing the Columbia job, where they're working to see if we needed more time, that there's the potential that they could delay the project yet another year for us. And my only feedback on that was, can we wait to make a decision on that once we get the results of the, because if we don't get the grant, well, then I don't want to hold Oglesby up from getting anything done. But if we can hold up long enough to at least get the results of the grant, I'd prefer to get that done. Now, don't get me wrong, even if we get the grant, we're still waiting on the authorized money from the capital bill from a year and a half ago for the fire hydrants. I get it. But to me, I would, if we get the grant approved, my recommendation that I'm gonna go to the engineers are, hey, when we put this out for bid, I need it put into the bid that how they get paid is when we get paid from the grant. Now, will that mean there's less people coming to wanna do the bid work? No, maybe, but if it's guaranteed by the state that that's how they're gonna get their funds, that's maybe how we'll get the work done. That's my goal.
Can you do that, Jim? Because I'm concerned that there may be, well, the other thing that would concern me is just that I think there's an obligation to pay it within so many days after after the bills are. Yeah, or you can get charged.
Yeah, I don't wanna get into the weeds on all that stuff because we have to
wait
we gotta
and see
get the
what
grant
happens.
first even before we have that conversation.
And so, do we have an idea of when they'll push the project back? Do we have by this time we know?
No, I didn't have a deep conversation
Okay.
about that. My only feedback was I'd rather not have, if that decision doesn't have to be made right now, I'd like to hold off as
Okay.
long as we can. I appreciate that they'll give us more time if we need more time for the grant, but as long as the grant comes through, like they said, early 2021, what does that mean? I don't
Because
know.
That grant is part of the capital bill too, so that's why I'm worried that.
Yeah, but
who
that
knows
part's-
when we're gonna get paid on any
True,
of these
but I mean,
grants
that part,
they're
that
gonna-
part was already authorized. Now, whether or not how it gets funded, I mean, don't get me wrong, if we can't get paid $130,000 for fire hydrants that was authorized a year and a half ago, how the heck are we gonna get paid $2.4 million in the next 6
Yeah.
months? I
That's
get
what
that.
worries me.
Aren't we kind of in a box, though, with that particular project? We've got from Garzanelli's to Walnut Street, 26 or 28 patches on that line.
We are in a definite bind, because if you look at the priorities, so again, this draft document that I put up, those priorities are basically what was given to me by some of the city employees and what I put together. So that's not an engineered priority. But when I look at how important Columbia and Walnut is, those are critical. When there's a problem that we have on Walnut Avenue in a certain section of town, it shuts the town down. That, to me, is just about the most important thing that we can get fixed. And it's extremely costly. So we are in a definite bind if we do not get this grant.
But if we don't get the grant, we have the money to do the Walnut side alone, correct? Or somewhere near that?
Well, yeah, so then that's
Because
the,
I'm not saying I don't believe in Illinois, but I have a feeling that eventually they're gonna say, we're not handing this out, and
yeah.
you guys have to figure it out on your own kind of thing. That's
Yeah,
what
I
I'm really
don't-
worried about.
I don't have the perfect answer, but you are correct. So if you look at what the grant is, we did a matching portion for the grant to where we're saying we're putting 800,000. So really the grant job is for 3.2 million essentially. We put up 800,000 to it, to get the grant. So we're looking for 2.4 million. But if you look at the work that has to get done, the Columbia job's a little over 2.4 million, and the Walnut portion is about 740,000. So is it feasible that if we had to, and if we don't get the grant, could we just take that 800,000 that we had earmarked to match the grant and apply that to the Walnut, but then not fix Columbia? I mean, that's a discussion we have to talk about. I'd hate for them to come and put a nice, beautiful overlay over Columbia, and that water line underneath of it is still terrible with like 30 clamps on it or something like that. But is that an option? For $2.4 million, it might be.
Yeah.
But I think that's a conversation we're gonna have to have, and I look forward to having it the moment we get the results of the grant.
Okay. Tom, have you looked, is there any other way to fund that Columbia if you wouldn't get the grant? I mean,
Bonds would be literally the only way, so. And then,
We'd have to float some bonds.
then it'd be off the electrical, which I'm guessing later on, they're gonna talk about electrical upgrades, so I don't know how we'd really do both at the same time is what I'd be worried about.
yeah, it's probably a legitimate.
Yeah,
reason.
our TIF six is not, there's a couple builds in it, but that's not gonna fund any of those projects, cause they're not in TIF six anyway, so. And I don't know where else we'd be able to find unless we went out for bonds.
Moving down to the next item, it's potential celebration of Oglesby 120 years as a city in 2022. It came up on Facebook that in 2022, the city of Oglesby will be 120 years old. If we're gonna start to look to do something, then we need to be starting now. I don't know if there's interest in doing it, or then when you do these things, there's always a dollar cost.
And would this celebration, in your mind, be in addition to the Summer Fun Fest or in conjunction with?
It would be at the same time. I would look to try to coordinate that. We do have everything scheduled for this year, and hopefully we'll be able to get it carried out, and we're still we're locked in for 2022 also.
And so my first recommendation, the events committee, I'd have them investigate it and see. I hope we're not, parades, they're great and all, but the last one we had was really, really expensive, so that's why I'd have them investigate what events or what we could have besides a parade, to tell you the truth, because I couldn't believe the dollar amount that we spent on a parade, but that's always an option, don't get me wrong, but we have them there for that, so I think we should have them investigate options and maybe
Well,
give a
it
presentation or something on
Looks
it.
like we'll have to form some kind of a committee to get some input from the community, and we have to be realistic. These things are very expensive.
Well, maybe we look at how we do parades as a regular thing, and maybe that's something that doesn't happen, but maybe this is such a special event that that's part of, so that therefore that's the exception for it, and we make Fun Fest have a theme that year maybe, or something like that, that kind of ties
Post-COVID.
into it. Post,
Yeah,
well,
well, exactly.
don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to this year's Fun Fest as being spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really am. We all deserve that, and that's another item we're talking about. But I'm just saying, if we want to do a celebration of 120 years as a city, maybe that's something that we can incorporate into an event that we already have. So therefore, you're not having a separate event just for 120-year celebration. It's incorporated into it,
Correct.
and it's a themed year.
And it would be great to get people downtown in our downtown businesses, and certainly a parade would do that, but.
Well,
Yeah.
our businesses, the business community is gonna have to step to the plate and help. We can't do it here. We can't, we gotta have a combination of everybody getting together with their input if we're gonna be able to make a success out of this.
I agree.
Okay. Number 7, we've got it divided into 4 sections. You wanna handle them to go down, Jason?
Sure, I don't know how much we want to, so you have a draft electrical system upgrade projects. So this is what was kind of worked on previous to me even. So what I left in there is, you see that there's some crossed out ones, there's some stuff that's already been completed. Major project that got completed was the South Columbia conversion from 4 kV to 12.4 kV, installed the 12.4 kilovolt transformer in the Phoenix substation. Let's see, there's a couple of major ones here, let me see here. The GTI Phase 2 electrical feeders and related work, and GTI Phase 3 electrical feeders work. Some other things that are still ongoing. So if you take a look at the other sheet that has the cost with everything, mapping out our electrical system, we're about $14,000 complete out of $45,000. Updating every single street light in the town, that total cost would be about $151,000. We're $36,000 complete. We do about $12,000 a year, and we only have to pay for about $3,000 of it because we get it via grant. The derecho storm damage, we estimated at $125,000. We have about $93,000 of that already completed. So that's kind of the ongoing ones that we have. If you take a look on it, you'll see that the projects listed for 2021 are ones that we'd either like to start or finish in this given year. And the red is the initial startup cost that it's going to take for each of those items. Now, this is not including, we don't have a final cost for replacing the old switch and the old sub. That's the thing that, when the thing hit the pole, we found out that we were unable to isolate and had to shut the town down, so we want to fix that. And then we left the primary Ameren feed there alone. We have no idea how much that's going to cost yet. And we're all kind of pending the study that's going to happen. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of cost there for things, but a lot of these things were identified well before. And this is obviously a 10-year maintenance plan plus. The only thing,
The key to a lot of this is the second feed to Malik's up.
what do you mean by the
Well,
key?
The storm damage, I would put number 1, the redundancy and all that stuff. So is this in order of what we're trying to do, or is this just a list of?
So this was
what we
kind of,
have?
so if you take a look, up until number 24, those were kind of in a priority list of how it is. However, things have changed since then. Everything from 27 on down are new things that came up in the last year or so. As you can see, number 1, 2, and 3 on top already mostly completed. So is that the priority? I would say as things change, things will change a little bit. For example, the one at Bootsy, or the Lone Star. The Lone Star tie-in, that's based off of another one that has to happen first, for example. So I would say that the priority we have right now is what's highlighted in the far right side are the projects for 2021. If that makes sense. So there's quite a bit out there.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so the derecho storm damage, yeah, I mean, that's
I
number
would
1.
Yeah.
But we're
definitely.
we're probably about 80% complete with everything. A lot of the stuff that's remaining is things like dead ends on streets and stuff that we still have to work on. So, I mean, it's a lot, the amount of work that's been done in-house is pretty crazy. Don't get me wrong, I'd say probably about a third of that was completed when we had those other crews come in right after the storm damage to get us operational. Now, everything that's remaining is things that boost our infrastructure, give us more redundancy, things like that.
Well, so 32, 34 though, I would probably, again, those, especially 34, if we could, for 40,000, that, not lose power for the whole city again, that'd probably be.
Probably pretty good.
I'd move that way up on the list.
So as you see,
So, yeah.
so as you see, yeah, I didn't order them in a new thing. These just got updated the last couple days.
Okay.
So and also I have it as 40,000 with a question mark because that's not an engineering estimate yet. That is just an estimate of what we think for the poles and the switches and stuff that we're going to be able to get a quote. I'll have quotes on that hopefully in the next week or so.
Okay.
One of the things that we've got to fit in here is a better way to handle the outages. We've got to set up a center, where where phone lines would come in to report outages and be dispatched from there. We're just gonna get, it's just not a good business practice the way we did it last time. You can't restore service and then run your operation from the field while you're doing the work. Doesn't make sense.
Wasn't Valcom involved in a lot of, I just feel like the dispatch would be where they'd call in.
The call
it
center.
A non-emergency police number is usually where they call, I would guess.
What we need to do is take a map of Oglesby and divide it into grids and from substations. And the idea to get people restored, you don't wanna, and everybody wants their power back on. But you gotta do the large groups first. You gotta isolate some of the laterals so you can get more people on. And if you're sitting there in one place and you've got it divided into grid, you can see where you can get the most people on first. One of the great things that the Oglesby did this time is, the storm hit, we lost the feed to Oglesby, and our electric department went out and isolated a number of sections. And then after we got the lights on, we got some main circuits on first. We eliminated the laterals, and then we come and pick them up. But if you're looking there on a map, say, hey, we can go there and we can get 60, 80, 100 people on, it's better than sending them over there to get 4 people on. And with what Jason is doing, with the mapping and everything else, that should help us tremendously. But we gotta have a place where we can get, they can call in, we can receive the calls. I don't care if Velcom takes the calls, if they send it, we gotta get the information so we can dispatch the crews to get the greatest number of people on.
I still think the call-in, but one neighborhood could have 50 people calling, and we think they're all out, but the whole town could be, realistically, hopefully have it populated enough with the smart meters that we can see all the
where it's
pockets,
at.
and then we can pull it up and see all that. And hopefully, eventually, we'll have good coverage of the smart meters to see this part of town's out, what I mean. Calling in, it's who's by their phone and who's actually gonna call, and then who's like, oh, we're out of power, and they put it on the Facebook, they're out of power, so they'll get to me eventually. So that's why I just think calling in won't really do anything in that section of figuring out what's really wrong, and especially since most people in this town probably have no idea what a main feed is compared to the feed coming to their house or anything else. So they're gonna say, hey, I'm out of power and I live here. That's gonna take us so long to figure where all these people live and map it.
Right.
That
I
But
do believe that-
if you have it isolated and divided, you can do that, and with smart meters, it'll give you a whole lot of other information.
I do
You
believe the
can-
derecho, though, was a perfect opportunity for us to implement an incident command. And I think that kind of brings a little bit to what you were talking about, where all the phone calls are going into one
Correct.
place. In this situation, the phone calls will be going from Valcom into the incident command. I really strongly suggest that the National Incident Management modules be looked at by everybody on the council for how to implement an incident command and what works best. It really divides up people into what their best ability to be able to work in, such as with what Don was talking about. You would take Mark Marincic and have him doing looking at the grids and then pushing out to the guys underneath him what they need to be doing and then where to go next. So it's a more coordinated event, particularly when we had people from all over the state that were coming in to help us. You need to have a better control of who's
Where
here
they're at
and
and where they're
what they're doing.
And I don't know what the fire department has, but I think that would be their centralized location. They
Yes.
got plenty of parking, they've got the space that,
And
So
they've
if
all had
anything, we should
hymns.
figure that will be the one area where everyone goes, and this is where we coordinate everything. If it happens again, that
And they
kind of
have a
stuff.
generator there, so if we lose power, the generator's on
Yeah,
site.
exactly.
So you'd be able to utilize laptops
And we have a main
and
sub
phones.
right there. It's a pretty great location to have it. 'cause
Agree.
That's where I think we should, and I don't know what plans we have. Again, I'm in City Hall, but there's probably definitely plans already out there, and we should probably just review them going forward.
So I'm looking at two, since you mentioned City Hall, there's two things I'm looking at. I've had a hard time getting a response for them. So I'm looking at two places to get generators in the city. One of them was to consider City Hall. I have to find out what the cost is, that's one. The other thing that caused part of this problem, again, I want to reiterate how pleased I am with the city's response for this derecho. It really is. Now, I understand if you were part of that 5% of people that took a week to get your power back, you would probably disagree with me. I get that. But as the mayor said, I mean, when we had 90% of the people that were back on within 8 hours at like 4 in the morning, that's phenomenal. So they worked on the biggest people to get, but the problem we noticed after that is after we started getting the vast majority of people, the ones that didn't have power, overwhelmed the calls into City Hall and to our people in the field. And part of that, it's kind of funny how technology is. If you go back 20 years ago, the city used to have a radio system between the trucks and the employees and stuff like that. Well, what made that obsolete? Cell phones. Cell phones made that obsolete. The problem is, now, when there's an emergency like that and there's a mass number of people, people just started, they didn't feel like they got the answers fast enough, so they bypass that and they just start calling our people directly in the field via cell phone. And that really caused some headaches.
But they should update their voicemail. Hey, we're working on it. Call this number, and that's what realistically, we were that worried. Change the voicemail. Say, hey, call this
I know.
certain number.
Well, the problem with that is then how do we, because that's what I had to do at one point in
And
time. Where
ignore
I had to
phones.
have Mark turn his phone off, and the only people that knew was the emergency phone that they were using to make contact call with him. Otherwise, he's just getting slammed every 30 seconds. So I'm looking at a cheaper version of having a radio system in case we
Yeah.
have another emergency like that again, that we could have a handheld walkie-talkie at like a base camp or something like that. So those are some of the things I'm working on, but yes, you're right. We need to have something with incident command and probably update our emergency procedures that we had. Because again, I just want to go back to saying how pleased I am with this. We've never seen a storm like that ever. Well, the history of my life, or history of the city's ever seen damage like that. So the response was very unique, and I thought they did an amazing job. But you're right, we should take this time as an opportunity to see how we can improve upon that in the future.
And please don't misunderstand, I think everybody worked wonderfully and together. So I am very pleased with how everybody responded in the situation. I just think that if we could pull together a little bit tighter some of those actions.
To make process improvement better. No, I get you. Next item on here is the second feed to the Malik substation. I'm not sure how much discussion we have on this. The last meeting is where we approved the study. So we obviously know we want to be able to get it for a couple things. It'll increase our reliability, the fact that we could backfeed the entire city to be powered from 2 different locations. It helps spread the power out a little bit easier if we want to expand on the west side of town. So those are the things that are obviously why it's important to us. How feasible it's going to be, what the cost is going to be, we don't have that information yet. We just authorized the joint study. I did send an email today. I'm still waiting for the the blowback of the response. But I sent an email today to request that we continue the 138 kilovolt study as well. Originally, we were told by the IMEA that that was more complicated, and we didn't want to do that at the same time because we didn't want to hold up the study for our second feed, which I agreed. So, and that's the reason we voted on it last meeting, but I sent an update today asking, can we still get the 138 study done as well? So I would recommend there's not a whole lot, probably more to talk about it until we get the results from the Ameren study, because we'll find out if they're going to say, 1, is it possible? 2, sure, it's going to cost 50 grand, or sure, it's going to be costing $1 million. You know what I mean? These are the things that we need to know that we can make decisions on what the value is.
It isn't gonna be cheap, no matter which way.
Probably won't be cheap, but
I don't think we got a choice. We have to get a second feed for reliability.
yeah, I'm more concerned about what the cost would be for the 138 because that's what I'm wondering if that's gonna be astronomical. Getting the second feed is critically important to open up our things. The 138 though, I cannot explain to you is if we as a city were able to have access, to be a city of our size, to have access to the interstates and have a 138 feed, what that could potentially do for us to be able to get in a factory of a size that could really, really be massive. I really want to be able to have that capability. But don't get me wrong, the second feed is the most important thing for the reliability of our residents and our customers. Same thing with the road widening at GTI that's on here. So essentially, I don't want to talk kind of more than what the engineer could probably put into this, but the road initially, when that was put down there, the Malik Road, I guess it wasn't designed for a lot of heavy semi-traffic and things like that, and they're obviously expanding at GTI, so we need to expand the road and the capabilities of it. The problem with it is there is poles on the sides of it. I don't believe they're like telephone poles and stuff like that. We would have to work with agencies to try to get them moved and stuff. I'm leery to do that right now because I got a feeling that we're gonna get a response back on this Matlack Road if we can get the second feed in there. I would hate to pay to get all these, the poles moved, get the road widened and everything, and then find out, yep, you're approved to get the second feed, and now the requirement for the second feed is, I need you to tear the road back up, put some stuff underneath of it, move the poles to do different things. I'd rather wait a little longer to get the results of the results of the second feed to see how that can tie into what we do with that road as well, if that makes sense.
That 34.5, if they would even give it to us on that, that's 40 feet away from the substation. It's just across the road. We need to wait, so if we gotta move the poles, we'll move them once.
Correct.
The 138 isn't much farther.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball of wax though, but yes, I agree. Either way, they both have effect on that road widening there.
Sure.
So that's why I'd like to
We
hold
gotta
up.
get one done before we can do the other.
Yes, sir.
You got one more there. Grayson, you wanna address it?
Oh, the solar array. I don't know how much we can really talk about this right now. Obviously, a solar array would be beneficial for the city. I don't know how many people paid attention a couple of years ago when the city was voting to get the solar array and stuff like that. Obviously, there's some benefits to the IMEA and to the city as well. We have been talking and discussing with the college to see if we can get something worked together with them. That part of the parcel there that they would have would be to have the solar array there, that they could tie in and do training with it or something like that. All I can say is there is an incredible amount of moving parts with this. Right now, we're kind of in a kind of a study right now to see how beneficial we can give to the college to come over to be on our electrical system. Granted, the COVID stuff that's happened and reduced the classes that they have out there has really changed their power profile, so it's hard to get good data. I don't want to wait another year to see if we can make some decisions on what to do. But this all kind of relates to the solar array and the possibilities of getting it out there. So I can tell you, though, there is a lot of moving parts, and it is a very complicated beast, but I hope we can get it done.
I think you said it all.
Yeah,
And hopefully we can, because, you know, with what's happened in Illinois in the last year, you know, we've closed the majority of our fossil plants. The rest of them are scheduled to be shut down by 2025, 2027. Green energy is nice, but Ameren just raised our toll charges for our transmission, to move our transmission to Oglesby by 24.5%. That's a significant increase. You know, I think we need base load plants. And one of the things that we cannot afford is to have them close more fossil plants, and we cannot afford to have them close nuclear plants.
Is the IMEA investigating transmission lines at all?
Pardon?
Are they looking at transmission lines? Because I feel like that's our rising costs. Our power price might be X amount state
Well,
average, but our
it's-
transmission, I feel like, is
it's
higher
the-
than average,
it's the-
definitely.
Ameren is charging us, so much more, because where are they getting their generation? They're getting it from Missouri, Kentucky, Indiana, fossil plants. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. If you take a look at the effect on the closings have had, on Ameren, what does it cost us, $6 a megawatt to move it? What does it cost Mid-America to move a megawatt? 3. Because they weren't affected like we were with the closing of the plants. It's a very integrated system, and we'll just have to keep banging our heads until we can get cost. But we're trying to do something, and I think that's what our residents need to know. We're just not sitting there with our heads in a bucket of sand. If that's done, let's go down to the next one, and it's just an idea. It's discuss options for bid work, unit work, project billing. And one of the things that I've seen that, especially since that, we had that horrific storm in August, we had all different tree contractors in here. And some of them did a better job than others. And the idea was, if we could put it out for bid, and maybe if we had a tree company that, if we needed them to come and do some tree work for us, this is the price. So much a truck, so much a man-hour, so much for equipment, and bid it on unit work. Some of these people came in and did us a hell of a job. Some of them came in and did us a job that wasn't so good. And when you take a look at some of the bids that come in, the tree work at Memorial Park, for an instance, it was a little over $26,000, I believe. And there's tree work, Memorial Park cleanup. I'd like to see more information, the dates, equipment, man hours. I'm not quarreling with that they didn't do the work. They did the work. They charge us a price, but I just think we needs to be a little bit more transparent in what we're doing. And let's, what's wrong with putting it out for a bid and see if we get anybody that's interested.
Yeah, I can see there being value there. I know a lot of the tree trimming that my guys have to do around electrical lines and stuff like that, we do ourselves. But occasionally, there has been times in the past that the tree is either so complicated or so large or something that it's beyond the scope of what our guys do, and then we've had to pay a company to come in to remove the entire tree. And I think the Parks Department does stuff like that too. So maybe there could be value in having somebody that we've contracted with that gives us a better base price because they know they're gonna get some consistent work throughout the year possibly.
But this is more of just if we have an emergency storm, right? If we have a tree, you're gonna be our guy for every tree, and that's,
Well, if
Well,
we're paying a lot of.
Yeah, no, I'm
we'll
not
have to do
talking,
bidding, or probably there's gonna be an ordinance. There's a lot of upfront costs that if we have a storm or something.
yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about, the derecho. That's a whole different ball of wax. And we could sit here and talk about who thought it was a good idea or not to bring people in to do that. That's a whole different thing. I'm talking about there are occasions that there's trees that are so large, that's bigger than we have equipment for in Oglesby, that we have contracted out, and I think we spent like $1,300 on a massive tree, because it's like, I don't want to give a number, it's ridiculously tall. So a company comes in for that, and I think the Parks Department does stuff like that too with certain trees that get done. So that would be good, instead of having to go out for each individual one, what if we could have, a certain company that's given us a good price, better than if we would've just went to them in the first place, because, hey, a couple times a year that a big tree's gotta get removed, you guys are our person that we're gonna go to. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just, it's the business side of things, scheduling, how busy they are, you know, it's gonna change for them depending on the day. And realistically, if we have a tree, we can call 3 guys and say, hey, what will you do for it? And we'll take the lowest offer.
Well, so far,
Just we haven't done that is probably the reason
other than the
we're having
derecho,
issues.
I've never had a tree that had to come out like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've had some trees that are like, hey, that's a dead tree, and that's gonna become a problem. Okay, let's get that. I told Mark to, you know, get with Parks, get with Bobby out there and see if there's ones that they're looking to get done too. Maybe we can get them combined together at the same time, and then we spend a couple thousand to get it done or something like that. So if there's a way that we can get those things done, cheaper, I'm all for it.
Well, and I just think the major issue is, oh, we have one guy and he'll come do it, so that's why we don't go out for more bids. And that's, if we had 2 or 3 guys that we told, hey, we're gonna bid this out to other people, then we have more competitive bidding, if anything.
Well, I've done that. I've had them call like just give me a quote. I've done that before where they just give me a quote on 2 different ones and we take the best one.
Yeah.
Done that. But I'm thinking if we actually had somebody specifically that I think what the mayor's talking about is we have something that goes out specifically that says, hey, what can you offer us per tree for how many, hours, something like that, and he wants to get the bid for us, so he offers it at a lower hourly rate than we would get naturally.
But then I'll just charge you more hours, so that's I'd rather have, hey, here's our tree, give me a bid, here's my tree, give me a bid, and have the 3 guys give me a bid, because, and not just trees, but in general, projects change from project to project, so if you ask for a flat rate, they'll probably actually be higher, because they never know what they're gonna get.
Well, I mean, if that is the
Is what
case,
I'm, again, from the business side of it, that's how I would
I
probably.
mean, if that's true, then obviously it's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm expecting it not to be that case. I'm hoping they're gonna give us a good hourly rate and not overcharge us on a bunch of bullcrap hours.
Why do you go into business?
We wanna make money.
To make money,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'd be aggressive and high because I never know what I'm gonna get. So, again, if I'd do it project by project, and realistically, I don't know how many trees we have in town that we're cutting down, but I don't see it being a consistent, hey, every month you're gonna be here cutting down a tree kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. For my department, since I've been here, there's been twice that it's been a tree that's been something outside the capability that we've had.
And
in our
park-wise, all the weak trees,
Yeah.
I feel like got taken out in the last storm, so that's why I'm having a hard time seeing, any more coming down.
I don't know if that's the best strategy to say, well, they've already, all the
just
ones that
pointing
needed to
it
go
out.
got blown down, so we don't gotta worry about it. I don't know about that. I still think it'd be
We've
worth
got
to see what,
100-year-old oaks, if they're still standing after that storm, 20 miles per hour won't take them down.
I still
so I'm
think
looking
there's
at-
value in seeing what the bid is, if they bid it, but obviously if it's not gonna be better than the ones that we already have on file that's been done, then obviously we're not gonna accept it and do it. But I still think there's no harm in taking a look to see if there's a business out there that's gonna give us a great deal. Cause I'm not trying to throw you on the spot, do you know how often Parks Department does things for trees for contracted? Cause I don't know.
They, and they all do, they use different ones, and I'm assuming that's because who's available, more than anything else.
Well, for mine, it was for quotes. We had one done on Quarter, and then we had one done on Columbia. And I just took the lowest of the 2 quotes.
Well, we may not have that many, it may not be, this past 2020 was an exceptional year.
Well, maybe Tommy's right. Maybe all the bad ones got blown down. We don't have a problem again for 20 years.
Hey,
I hope so. Let's move on to number 9.
Did you want to talk about other optional services under B? Mayor, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
So the one thing, I forgot to add it to the agenda, but it kind of relates. The last working meeting, we talked about the sidewalk problem in Oglesby. We talked about it. We said what needs to get done, but I don't think we ever found a means for an action. I remember somebody on the council mentioned how we would change how for new properties that would get built, how we would do something different with the escrow, I think, that we would keep money on hand for the sidewalk. What if we did that, and if they put a sidewalk in, great, they get that money back. If they don't, what if we had somebody out there for bid work that was responsible for doing sidewalks in Oglesby, and then they would, whatever that cost is?
and I'm gonna go back to this, sidewalks are different from house to house, lot to lot, so, again, if it was a hard project, I'd just charge you more hours. This is how, I'm just, again, business side of things, you know.
I was figuring.
They're
that-
gonna get their money either way. I'd
I
rather
was
have
figuring
somebody
the
bid
bid,
it.
the bid would be whatever per linear feet of sidewalk is required or something like that.
We got curves, you got, again, I'm not a concrete kind of guy, but I feel like there's a curve or there's some other part, aspect that they have to put more concrete or more work into labor and that kind of stuff.
I
It'd be,
think we
different,
kinda do
different.
that now, don't we? With,
I don't know when we've ever had to put one in.
you know,
Usually when
they
we take
put it-
escrow, they make sure to put it in, cause I think we take more than what it's gonna cost us to put in that side.
Yeah, the only thing we have right now that we do for sidewalks is we have the sidewalk program, which is essentially if residents do it themselves, we pay for the concrete portion of the work, whatever the labor is for the, so we don't pay for any of the labor because they could do it themselves, or, so if they bring in a contractor to do something with the sidewalk differently, we would have that broken down between how much the concrete was, and we will reimburse them for that. So that's the only thing that we have as a policy that we've actually done that I know of here.
And do we mandate that new homes have that sidewalk put in? And if so, within what time frame from the house being built to getting the sidewalk in?
Well, so that's the problem. I mean, it's in the ordinance that it's supposed to get done, but the city hasn't really been enforcing it, and that's what I think we really need to talk about. I mean, what are we gonna do when a resident doesn't comply?
I believe we had that issue and now it's enforced every time someone gets a building permit.
So you're saying, so we have a solution now going forward of new homes,
We're enforcing the current ordinance is what I'm saying.
for new homes.
Yes.
What do we do about ones that should have been done? Because now there's giant gaps of areas that don't have sidewalks.
We're gonna have to dig up the documents alone from how long ago just to figure out if they were supposed to have one or not. And realistically, after, was it the early 2000,
2005.
2010, whenever, yes, that was
Or 2008. I think it's
really when we
2005, 2008.
mandated it. Before that, I don't think there was anything in,
No, but
The language
what
about
about
it.
homes in the last 5 years?
well, that, they should have it. Again, that
So what do
should
we-
be,
Then would we go back and enforce
So what do we
it?
do? That's the real question. What do we do?
if you want,
Well, some of these homes, I don't know how you'd put a sidewalk in because it's landscaped.
Oh, boy.
But there's some newer homes, and we've got a resident in here that, I look for this spring, either, they put the sidewalk into is it to the curb they go to?
So many feet from the curb, isn't it?
feet from, yeah, or whatever it is that, well, I'm not so sure that they're gonna do that.
well, but again,
And looking
we're
at
gonna have to
that,
take a
they
stand.
don't have to disrupt their landscaping to get it done.
No, they don't have to.
No.
but it's just like our fence ordinance. It's about enforcement has been the issue, and it is the issue. Because a lot of the fence issues is no one's enforcing it. It's there, there's rules for it, it governs it, but no one wants to
Yeah,
actually be the guy that says, hey, your fence is illegal, you gotta take that out.
I'm not as concerned about fencing concerns as public safety things. I don't like the idea of kids
Well,
walking
the
to
corner
school.
fences that are supposed to have gaps so you can see through them, because you're on a corner, are not gapped
Okay.
out, and that's a safety
You're right.
right there,
Okay,
so.
that's fair. That's a fair point. So that's a different story than just neighbor to neighbor having a whatever. But my concern is when it comes to the sidewalks is it'd be nice to not have sections of the city where kids have to walk to school, because we have kids that walk to school, where they have to walk in the street for a period of time. I think that's terrible, especially if there was an ordinance. And I'll just tell this, if you're a homeowner and you built a home since that ordinance was there, and you have kids walking in the street instead of walking on a sidewalk that's supposed to be on a property, shame on you. Shame on you. It's my 2 cents. But I'd like to find a way to enforce that though, because I don't think that's right.
Mr. Attorney?
You have an ordinance that requires them to do that. I haven't looked at it, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm assuming that ordinance has a penalty in there, doesn't it? If you don't do it?
I don't believe it does.
It doesn't have
I
it just
don't.
says you have to do it.
Just have to do it. Doesn't say what happens. I mean, you could probably give them some kind of administrative fine that's probably listed somewhere else in the ordinance, but
You'd have to do it, the ordinance would have to, impose a fine. I mean, I would still think that if there's an ordinance that says you have to do it, you should be able to take them to court and force them to do it. the nice thing about if you can threaten them with a fine, they may be more inclined to do it quickly, quicker than, just tell you to, I'm not gonna do it, make me do it, and, then you gotta go through the rigmarole of making them do it.
I think we may need to look at that ordinance, though, to assure that there is like a time frame associated with it and/or what type of fine. And to Tommy's point, maybe looking at those fences that are at least on the corners, and are there time frames to have it completed and the changes made and the fine associated with it?
I'll tell you what,
Probably the best thing to do with, with the sidewalk ordinance, and Jim, if you've got any comments, Jim Kleiner, but, if you wanna redo it, and now this only helps you going forward, this doesn't
Yeah.
help you going backwards, but,
Yeah.
you can put in with your building permits that they'll be escrowed an amount, to put in the sidewalk, and when you put in the sidewalk, you get the money back.
how about I take for action, this is the first I heard about this, the fences that are blocking corner views. Let me get with my streets guys, see if I can identify what properties those are, and then I'll look in to see if
We
they're
have
even.
a specific one that he had the gaps, and then he filled in the gaps because his dog was getting out. So I know exactly, there's
Well, if you
at
want,
least one that I definitely know, there's
After-
two at least. I know,
afterwards,
so.
if you want to share that with me, and then I will do a assessment to see what we're talking. Are we talking about 2 properties, or are we talking about 20 properties in the city that are affected?
Well, I
That's
just
what I'm
know
curious.
two, but
I
again,
think
it
if
comes down to
if the
enforcement.
street guy and the building inspector take a look, we'd be able to identify them and move on.
Okay, sounds good, I'll have that for action.
I think it comes down to the building inspector, though. Is who
Well, I gotta
needs to enforce
identify
that.
which properties they are, and then we can then get the building inspector to take a look to say, yep, that is clearly violation, not violation.
Go down to the next one, number 9, discuss and propose solutions for abandoned properties. And in parentheses, I got Florence Street. We have a bit at the east end of Florence that, we finally got that house down. And, we got a property that's not been reclaimed properly. So what do we do, and how do we get it corrected?
On the Florence Street, I've sent a letter, I've received no response to the attorney who was representing the estate. The owner of the property died. I didn't realize, when they said they were, tearing the house down, I thought they did it properly. I didn't really, realize that, that it was not done properly. I don't know whether the estate is still pending right now, or whether it's closed. I mean, there has to be, someone has to own
Yeah.
the property. So it's either been conveyed, sold during probate, conveyed out to certain heirs at the end of probate, but some, or it's still in probate, those are about the only 3 options. Like I said, I sent a letter and received no response to the letter. I sent it to the attorney that was representing the estate that I communicated with when we were trying to force them to tear the property down, to demolish the property. And I guess I didn't realize that they didn't, I thought it was properly demolished. What are we missing? They just don't have any fill dirt in
They
there?
haven't filled it, and
Fill dirt,
the weeds are 4
full of
feet high
weeds,
too.
there's
Yeah.
Pieces of concrete there, it's a mess, it needs to be cleaned up.
I have not received a response to the letter. I'll try to follow up with that, but the other thing to do would be I can ask the title company to, tell me, who's the owner of the property, or if we got a PIN number.
Yeah, the county should be able
The
to.
clerk's office could
Yeah.
even just, you can, if we got a PIN number, we should be able to determine who the owner is.
Next on the agenda is, Summer Fun Fest update. I know we got the carnival scheduled. We're moving ahead with it, Amy?
Almost all of the entertainment that we had booked for last year is about 95% confirmed for this year. So everything that we had lined up is lined up again for this year, assuming we can go ahead with this.
All right.
That's good news.
Yeah.
What about, if we're gonna run a 50/50 drawing since we gave it out this time?
In 6 months, or in, yeah,
Well, do we do
18.
it, start it now and do it again at Christmas?
Do it at Boots and Brews if we're able to have that.
Why can't we do it at Fun Fest? I think it's gonna be huge. If this thing goes off, it's gonna be huge. People,
Well, if you're gonna sell 50/50s, we better start
Wow.
moving to get it now and determine when you're gonna, draw it.
you know, our Fun Fest that we have in Oglesby is so early into the summer over Father's Day. It's one of the first kind of festivals in the area and stuff like that. If we are actually able to have it happen this year, I think it's gonna be bigger than we had it in many years, just because so many people have been itching to be able to celebrate and be able to get out and do things. So I certainly hope we're gonna be able to have it, and I think we'll do great. I mean, what's the negative if we,
So my issue is we're in January and that is in June. So in 5 months, how many tickets are we gonna sell? So I could say, yeah, especially with utilities, that kind of stuff, but I don't know if we should wait and do it at Boots and Brews or later in the year, because yeah, we'll sell a lot, but I don't know how many we'll sell in 5 months is my issue.
well, let me ask you, normally for Fun Fest, when is the majority of the tickets sold? Because and I'm asking because I don't know. Is it right before the Fun Fest drawing, or is
Oh,
it
yeah,
throughout the
that
year?
week, the 4 days that everyone's there and we're selling tickets right next to wristbands and beer tickets is when
Is that like 50% of it, or is it like 90% of it?
I'd go out on a limb and say 50. I'd have to look at the numbers, to tell you the truth, but because they start usually in September, August, and then they sell them until then. So that's why we could do it and see how it goes, and then hopefully we have the Fun Fest. But if not, we'll just kick it back until later on in the year is probably how we should handle it. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad idea. Maybe start doing it now with the understanding that we're gonna have a great Fun Fest, but if something happens to where we're not allowed to have it, then everything gets kicked to Boots and Brews
And
maybe.
I think we should order less tickets this year because obviously we're probably gonna sell less too.
Yes.
We gave,
Yeah,
you know, we.
for 2021.
We kept in there, gave, $6 grand to start it off.
Right.
And we barely broke even because
Correct.
of the year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we still got, I think I'll kick it off with $6 grand again.
I'm okay with that. Man, the last year was kind of a fluke year, so hopefully this year,
It's kinda,
hopefully the vaccine is
Kinda
out to
get the
everyone by
input,
June,
what we're gonna
you
draw.
know? That's what I'm a little worried about.
you wanna move on? The next one is discuss proposed electric study recommendations.
So, this is where I was hoping we could actually get in a conversation about stuff, what we wanna do. Now, we all heard, what she recommended. There was 4 areas that I asked her when we did the study. I said, here's what I'd like to be able to know. 1, can I afford, even though I'm authorized to have another electrical worker, can we really afford it? I don't want us just to do it just because I'm authorized. I want to do it because I know that we can afford it. Second thing is, we know that we're short on the wages for them. Can I afford to give them the raises? And the other thing is,
And so, before we move on, I want to touch on that because that was based just on the electrical rates, not the whole financial picture of the city of Oglesby. And I want to point that
That
out.
is correct.
That
is-
money is going to come out of somewhere, and especially when you don't want to raise taxes, I don't know where we're going to get that money from. Is what I want to bring up.
that
right
is
now.
correct. It was based on the electrical fund itself.
So, in a
Correct.
perfect world, if they were their own utility and they weren't city owned, yeah, we should hire
Well,
them.
that was still based on us transferring the same amount of money, though. I'm not saying we're transferring more, so if you're saying you want to transfer more from the electric fund, that's going to be a problem. But that study was still
Pension
based,
keeps going up for the police. That's number one issue I still burning in my mind. Yeah, we're behind on infrastructure, behind it, but
And
we're
you-
millions behind on the police
and,
pension.
and you got your vote to raise taxes.
Yeah.
Is the state supposed to coordinate and take over the police pension?
The same state of Illinois that hasn't even paid us for fire hydrants, that state of Illinois,
Down,
yes.
what they're doing, what they're doing with the downstate, what they're doing with the downstate police pension funds is they're basically using the IMRF model. So, you will get certain, hopefully, advantages because we'll be pooling all of the downstate funds as opposed to the city of Oglesby. The Oglesby Police Pension Fund just invests the money that's in the Oglesby Police Pension Fund. Now you'll have a larger pool, so hopefully they can invest more in equities and invest in a more sophisticated manner to get a better rate of return. But it isn't going to change it would only have an impact on the actuarial costs if the rate of return goes up, pretty significantly. Each year, like what Oglesby pays to IMRF may not be percentage-wise for its employees, may not be the same as what Peru pays or Spring Valley pays or LaSalle pays or Ottawa pays or Mendota pays. IMRF looks at those communities and they do they do an actuarial, analysis. And then they determine your rate, the percentages that we have to pay in IMRF, based upon that analysis. So that's the model for the Downstate Police Pension Fund. The model does not involve the state of Illinois kicking in, any extra money.
And we're so heavily in bonds and government bonds this year that we got 2%, 3% return when the
Yeah, and
stock
that-
market
and-
got 20.
Yeah.
So that's another issue. We're gonna be behind just because of this year's return on our investments compared to if we were in equities right now.
Yeah. And that's one of the things they want, by pooling them together, they feel they can hire, better managers. IMRF is much better, is by far and away the best funded plan of any of the state plans.
Because it's municipal funded, not state funded.
Yes.
yeah.
Right. It's not the fault of I want to make it clear, it's not the fault of the police pension board. The state statute provides that unless you have a certain amount of assets in your fund, the only thing you can invest in are government bonds. And then you get a little bit higher, and then you can invest in government bonds and in government-backed securities, like mortgage backs. And then you get a little bit higher, and you can start to put money in equities. Well, as you know, Tom, what's about the worst investment you could have had in the past 10 years?
Government bonds for
Yeah.
sure, without
And
a
it's
question.
it's not the fund's fault. It's not the police pension board's fault. That's in the darn state statute. And if you think about it, it's not just the state doing things backwards. You gotta think about the fact that the state realized that a lot of these, pension funds were in small communities. And the people probably sitting on those pension funds didn't have the investment expertise to where we wanted to allow them to try to play like Warren Buffett, in the market, with the pension money. And also you gotta think about that when that legislation was probably passed, you were probably looking at government bonds paying 2%, 3%,
Yeah.
4%. So you were getting some.
Much higher than
We
that.
always, we can always remember that, the stock, that we should have bought Amazon when it was $90 a share, 10 years ago or something.
I didn't have the $90.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that hindsight's always 20/20, particularly in investments. So, but there should be a better rate of return. So once it's, fully integrated, I would think that should help. But, for all the years that it hasn't been fully integrated, it's gotten us behind. And the other thing that's gotten us behind is that even though, to the best of my knowledge, the city of Oglesby always paid in the amount that the Illinois Department of Insurance told the city to pay in every year, unfortunately, the Illinois Department of Insurance was not doing an actuarial analysis based upon each municipality. And it just, the amounts that they were telling the municipalities to put in were not sufficient, to meet the eventual retirement obligations that the municipalities were gonna have.
Sorry, I know we got off track a little bit there, but I guess it all does relate. But to answer your
Yeah.
question, no, the electric study did not take that into effect of transferring more money out of it was based on transferring the same amount that it was in the past. But, so the other two things I asked her to do is take a look at what could we do to give residents a better deal on electric rates, and then the big one was if we could make a second rate structure for mid-commercial entities. There's a lot of a lot of businesses in town that are just under the large capacity commercial use. The difference in cost between large capacity use and small capacity use is quite extensive. So that's what I had asked her to do. What she had come back was with two recommendations that we can do. They're all good, but the two biggest ones is, the first thing, small commercial rate modification. She said, instead of doing a separate rate for just them, the commercial rate side, that's the small commercial rate, is such a small power profile of your entire city. It's like 6% or something like that. You can afford to cut their rate because they're also the one you make the most margin on. So you're actually allowed that you could cut that rate and it wouldn't affect you that much because there is profitability there. Remember, she also said she recommends a city to be between 12 and 20% margin for electrical company, or for a municipality. We're at about 15.5%. I would rather get us closer to that 12% because I'd like to be able to say that we're giving just about everything we possibly can, every benefit to our customers that we can. So, we talked about percentages. I know she didn't mention it there because I wanted to mention it here. We thought 15% would be conservative number. Could we do more than 15%? We could, but until we have the full results of the study, my recommendation is that we could cut small commercial rates in the city by 15% for their electrical bills.
And so will that increase growth? Because I'm pointing the obvious out here. You take away, we're losing revenue, and where's that money gonna come
Correct.
from again?
All these things are gonna bring us closer to that 12% margin instead of the 15.5% margin that we're at now. But I think it's important because, obviously, if you look at our businesses, the small businesses pay the highest rate they are. And when you compare that to, like, I don't want to give a specific business name, but a business that has the exact same size and type of business in the city of Ottawa, they pay a significantly lower rate every single month. So I would like to see if we can get that closer so that we're not driving businesses away, we're attracting businesses to come in. And I think 15% is a really good start until we get the results of the final study to see what we can apply to residents and maybe even more to commercial businesses. Plus, the secondary thing, she said the big thing that would be a huge difference for people would be these businesses that have different operating hours other than the prime time of the day. Right? For that, though, you need to have time of use reports, and the smart metering data is not complete enough. We did start putting smart meters in the city over the summer last year, so we do have some data. The problem is COVID-related stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna ask how many businesses there are in Oglesby, because I don't know what the outlay for those smart meters would be, but I feel like there wouldn't be that many smart meters needed for the businesses side of things.
Well, so that's the reason we can do this rate reduction in the first place, is because the number of people, you have, like, I don't have it in front of me anymore, but I want to say residential is like 35% of the power profile. It's like 5 or 6% is what the small businesses is. It's a very small portion of it, and they're the highest one. So that's why we can give them such a rate. Right now, there's no way we can give 15% reduction to residents. I mean, hopefully we can once we get the data to come back.
So that the 15% is what we're gonna reduce the commercial.
The commercial
small
rate
com-
by
Okay,
the
now I
small,
understand.
the small commercial rate, not the large capacity one. The large capacity one's already, as I said, the difference right now between the small commercial and the large capacity rate is quite astronomical. So that's why there's businesses like some of our bars and restaurants that are averaging 9,000 kilowatt hour usage. But if they were at the 10,000 and over, they would qualify for that large capacity. So I'd like to see if there's a way that we could, my recommendation is that I put together an ordinance to reduce 15% of the overall rate for our small commercial. That's my 2 cents.
I'm for it.
Okay.
Okay, that, now keep in mind, that is only pending until we get all of the other data too. Hopefully, we can establish time of use, which will have the hugest benefit to things like that are open at night or operate at night. And then hopefully we can operate even more to residents right now. The next big thing is, as I said, the residents, it's hard to give something to because that's 35% of all the power that we do inside the city. So being able to give them something is very small for what we know right now. But the biggest thing that we thought about is, people talked about the power and how much it cost over the summer, and I don't care how many people say that we never raised the rates for hasn't been done by this administration. What does happen though is there is something built in that there is the base rate, not the base rate, the rate does go up by a certain amount every June. It's a weird complication. I know BHMG says it's an easy complication. It is not. It's very small. It is something like less than 1%. But the problem I have with that is it happens every year, June. Well, and I know we're going to talk about water here in a little bit. We have a little bit more time with electrical. But when costs are already going up because of the power cost adjustment is usually highest in the summertime, the amount of use is going up because it's warmer in the summertime. I think that is a terrible time to have our annual increase in the beginning of June.
We're talking about less than 1%. So if my bill's $400, which I don't know who has a $400 electric bill, that's $4.
The less than 1% is what I'm talking about is, I think, I want to say right now the base rate is, don't quote me, but it's like $11.53. That is going to go up by a percentage. It's an incredibly complicated.
Yeah, so but 11, even if it goes up 5%, that's
It's less than that.
55 cents maybe? Am I
Per
doing that
kilowatt
math right?
hour.
Yeah.
Per kilowatt hour. So, no, not 55 cents. If it's I want to say right now it's 11.53 cents. So it would go up a small percentage of that every year that it goes
So
up. And that's been happening every year the last 20 years in Oglesby, June 1st.
Because that's when the new year starts, most likely.
I don't know if
They
it's
do
the New
that.
Year's. Verbal thinks that's just when it was approved last in
Well,
June.
June 1st is the beginning of every year. That's probably why.
Well,
No, May 1st.
May
is
1st.
May
May
1st, is- so
1st.
yeah.
So my
Yeah.
recommendation was, we can give a little bit to the city for two things. One, why don't we skip this year's annual increase? We do have some time because we have to get this ordinance obviously out before June 1st. But more importantly, we don't just skip it this year, we slide it. We change that update that's gonna happen, make it be in January. So that way people are not getting their annual increase at the same time that everything else is causing electrical costs to go up higher.
And so I'm just going to be the random citizen of Ogles that says, well, you doubled my water rate, so you're going to save me less than 1% on my electrical by kicking it down 6 months. And again, if you want to do it, I'm all for it, but I'm just.
As I said before, there wasn't
Trying to give something back.
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand when you try to do
Less than
things.
1% is a slap in the face is how I would look at it, but.
So the two things with that is, no matter what you give people, you're right, it's never enough. But the honest thing was, I was hoping that we'd be able to give a lot more from there, but the electric rate study did not come back to where we have enough detail that we can give anything significant. Could we give them something? We talked about that. The only thing that we'd feel, it's so minute, it's so small, it would be a slap in the face. So that's why I'm not recommending any rate cutting for the residential costs, but I am recommending, one of the big things we can do is stop it from increasing so darn much in the summertime when it's already going up as it is. So if that's something we can give now, I'd like to give that. And then, once we get the completed rate study, if that's positive information, not only can we cut the small commercial rates, maybe even a little more, but the big thing is, I really would like to be able to cut residential rates. But right now, there's not enough evidence that we can do that.
You can't do that when Ameren hits you with a 24.5% increase in toll charges.
And again, verbal, going back to what she said, we're gonna wait for the study when GTI is fully operational. And I think we should just hold off until that happens, because
Well, there's a couple.
In a perfect world, yeah, GTIs can be at max, but I
Well,
can
there-
see a lot of stuff happening.
It's
between
more
that
than
now.
just it's more than just GTI is a big, GTI is a big one. That is a big one, but it's not just them. The other part of the thing was the time of use data. We don't have enough time of use data because it hasn't been, there's two problems with it. One, not all the smart meters were in, obviously. Some of the smart meters started getting in over the summer. So the information we have is COVID-related times. So we really need to get out of COVID to be able to get some good data out there to see what it is that we can make for cost savings for different things. So there is some major things I'm hoping that we can do, but we can't do it right now. But I didn't want to not do anything since we do have some evidence that we can make beneficial things for residents and businesses. So the biggest things I recommend is for the businesses, and at the very minimum, I'd like to change the time that they update it and make that be January 1st when the costs are already low.
And so can we talk about freezing, raising water rates too, or?
That is in the next topic,
Okay.
I believe.
Again, it's so minimal on their bill, I guess we can look into it.
So,
It's a gimme, though. It at least shows some good.
There
things
is
that
so-
We're trying to make some good changes.
let me
for them.
explain a little bit
Here's-
what
here's
happens.
$10 for the next 6 months.
Let me explain what happens in the summertime. Okay. So the power cost adjustment's the biggest thing, right? Power cost adjustment is factored so many different things. One, it's factored on the cost of things that are out there because the stuff that the mayor talks about that happens, that has caused the availability and demand for electricity to be higher when there's more being used. So therefore, that gets affected in the power cost adjustment. The other thing that gets affected is because it's hotter, the lines are hotter, so there's more loss. When there's more loss in the system, that also gets passed on to our customers. That all gets put into the power cost adjustment. On top of that, with the issues that we had with COVID this year, that made the power cost adjustment the highest the city has ever seen in its existence, at 2.8 cents per kilowatt more, right? I think the highest we've ever had up to that was like 1.5, like 2 years ago. So that's like a triple factor right there. Then on top of that, the fact that it was warmer, it's normally already warmer, so people are using more AC, but the fact that it was so much hotter, that caused people to use even more. So when you put all those factors together, that's what caused people to be really upset, because they're paying for a high bill, plus COVID's going on. And on top of it, the cherry on the top is the fact that I found out that June 1st is when we have our annual increase for adjustment costs. That's something we can control. We can't control the other things, but if I can control knocking that cherry off on June and moving it over to January, I'd rather do that. That's my 2 cents. If anybody's got an issue with that,
We're
let
throwing
me-
that cherry off a mountain though, again. Again, if you want to move it, I'm all for it, but I think we should freeze water rates going up 5% if we're talking about freezing electric rates for less than 1%, because that's minimal compared to what water could do, because that's supposed to go up 5% this year.
All right. We can talk about it. All right,
Let's move on,
okay.
and we'll go back and revisit this again. We are in discussion on proposal of modifying the annual city water sewer rate increase schedule. And I'm assuming that you wanted to move that back too until January?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, I got so flustered with everything else here. So, yeah, the water rate, right now, this one we have less time to do something with, because the electric rate one, that increase is supposed to happen June 1st. The water rate, even though people's water rates didn't go up until like June or July, that's because we voted to push it off because of COVID. Technically, the ordinance has it listed as March 1st. So if we don't take action on this, that is gonna go up. I'd like to see if there's a way that we can modify when that happens.
I think we should just freeze it for the year, because now we're hitting the grant level that you can get your grants for, and they just doubled their water rate in the middle of COVID. I think this would be a great time to freeze all our rates, to tell you the truth, now that we're bringing it up.
So I was
It's
gonna
gonna have to
recommend,
be tighter on the spending in water, sewer, and electric. That's gonna be the,
I'll tell you what, how
hard
about
part.
this? I'm not prepared to say that, because I don't have any data on it. I mean, that's nice, that's a wonderful thing to be able to tell people. I would love to be able to say that. How about this? How about I go to our city engineers that did this up before, and I ask them to take a look at what the impact is by us keeping it at the same rates for one more year. I'll see what the impact is. The other thing I don't
Well,
know
the
is.
major selling point was the grants, though, is what, we gotta do this.
That wasn't
to
just the,
get
no,
grants.
I would disagree that that is incorrect. That was a selling point, was to be able to qualify for community block development grants. But the major thing that it was, is we did not have enough I shouldn't say revenue, we didn't have enough margin coming in from our water and sewer to pay for the infrastructure, much less being able to pay for a $15 million wastewater treatment plant that we're hoping to work some magic on and see if we can get here soon. That's the primary reason. So if you want to discuss that, I would rather move this, but keep in mind, whatever we do, we have to do it quickly because March 1st is when it is in the ordinance to take effect. So if you want me to see if I can get a report from them quickly in the next week, I don't want to throw them on the spot here. Is that, is that something I
Oh,
could
he's
probably
got
get-
this, I can
The
tell.
18th comes down pretty quickly.
There you go, delegation. All right, so, all right, thank you. How about that? I will, because this way it will give us 2 options in the month of February to see if we can still fix it
Okay.
yet. So I will try to get you something on our our next meeting, which is, oh my God, is that next week?
18th.
Yeah, it's
Monday. I'll see if I can get you something Monday, because hopefully they already have all the data. We'll take a look to see what the overall impact is to our overall plan, because that was what the plan was, to make sure that we had enough money to be able to pay for all these things that we need to get. Those things aren't going away. And keep in mind, we've already delayed this by 3 months by last year by delaying it. So the answer might come back. Don't be surprised if the answer is, yeah, that's going to be pretty big, significant no. But I'd love to be the guy up there with you to say, yeah, let's keep.
There's always, you know, we gotta buy this, and all. There's always gonna be that list, though. At this point, we need to just start prioritizing more, I would say. You know, the wastewater treatment, we might have to kick it out another year because of what happened the last year. I don't know.
We
That's-
already went 26 years on, I got that correct? Was it 26? You might not know. I think it was 26 years we went on repainting the water tower, which was meant for 15 years. So, I mean, we've already gone pretty thin on some of these things that are prioritized to get done. I think we did something with the reservoir for the last time it's never happened in the history of the city. And we did it for the first time last year. I mean, there's so many maintenance things in our water department. I mean,
No
heck,
one got sick.
well, that's the reason we went to test, is because a lot of things that were being handled were I'll just be honest, they're being handled incorrectly, right? So that's the reason we went to test, so we had a better management of this type of stuff. And there is a ton of cost that was not being looked into. So I would love to be able to say, freeze the rates, cut the rates, but that's not the responsible thing to
I think we
do.
all need to realize that nobody likes to raise rates. But for a lot of years, the electric revenue subsidizes the water and sewer. And consequently, because we were doing this, a lot of things didn't get done. And
I think it was more funds mismanagement by especially when Bootsy was up and running. I feel like it was previous councils mismanaging the money they had.
well, I'm
gonna go out on a limb and say
I'm
that.
not gonna go there, but I'm just saying, we got a ton of projects, and we're trying to do a lot. And, hopefully we can come together and make the best decision for the residents of Oglesby. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree. I can't tell you what happened in previous administrations, but when we have a digester that wasn't touched in 60 years, you know, I can't say if that was mismanaged funds or mismanaged assets or resources or something like that. All I'm saying is right now, I would be willing to delay the update a period of time. But if you'd like me to look into what the impact of freezing the rates for an extra year, I can look into that and get you a report.
Let's look into that.
I will do that.
Let's go down to the next one. Discussion on new water sewer connections for non-residents, non-annexed properties. And, we've had some properties, in, actually, Oak Bluff subdivision. We got some people that were offered the opportunity, and since then, to be connected, connect to our water lines. And, then we went through a period of, that we said no, and it's been all over, from what I understand, and, if I understand Jason correctly, is that, to develop an ordinance where the council would decide whether, they could tap on. The water lines are right to the property line now.
Yeah, so if I may, you have two pieces in front of you. You have the one that actually has kind of, and it's a colored one, it's real nice, it shows where the water lines already exist and things like that, and we can talk about two things here. The two lots that people wanted to annex in to get in, which that's a whole other thing, but the other one, about a year and a half ago when I kind of took over, I heard about how the properties out in Oak Bluff subdivision had a letter from Commissioner Gary Carey many years ago. No one could produce this letter for me, could not be found. And then I would say maybe 6-7 months ago, we had a meeting with Mr. Giordano and he provided the letter. So now I have this letter, and I provided it for you, so it's fascinating, and there's good things and bad things about this. The first thing I want to say is, I absolutely do appreciate Commissioner Gary Carey of what his intentions were and what he meant to get done. I think that's commendable. His goal was to see if he could motivate the people on these other lots to want to annex and come into the city. I disagree with his methodology about how he went about doing it. Again, best intentions, but I don't agree with it. This letter, he took upon himself to have the authority to say what he would want to connect for water properties that, I mean, we have water lines that are under Oak Bluff Court, under a road that we don't own. I don't even know how that was legally done. I'm not sure. But again, he had the best of intentions. The problem I have with this is, I guess the guy that's in my position right now has the authority to just connect people up. We have a
That is
means.
Commission form of government, yes.
Yeah, well, I would like to be the first to say I'd like to give that authority away. Because by me giving that authority away, I will ensure that not a single individual, whoever comes after me, comes after my position, after me, is not going to be able to just go ahead and do this. I would like to see if it's possible that we can make an ordinance that says, because again, we have something in the ordinance now to where we have we have residential, we have people that live outside the city, and we have the Piety Hill area, right? We have a means in there. It is very vague on what it says it takes to be somebody that lives outside the city, but to get on our water. There's no clear indication. So I'm not saying he went against anything here. I'm just saying I think that kind of goes against the spirit of what it is. I would like to put something in there as an ordinance that says as long as there's a supermajority, for example, I'm against allowing more people that don't pay taxes inside the city to get on our water. I'm against that. But if I'm the only person that feels that way, I can get voted out via supermajority. That's what I'd like to see if we can we write an ordinance that says a supermajority to allow something?
Yes, I believe your ordinance right now provides that if you are contiguous to the city, which means you can annex, that if you want water and sanitary sewer, you must annex.
I'm talking about ones that don't want to annex into the city. I don't have a problem with, so what?
No, but no, what your ordinance says is you don't get, the question that came up with these lots is.
Well,
we
these
have-
lots, so there's two things I wanted to address. These lots specifically is a whole other issue because of the sewer that we can talk about. But I'm talking about the first part, about allowing properties that are outside the city limits to get city water.
There, out of that subdivision,
Out of that,
there's more than people out there that have water that aren't annexed into the city.
correct. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them that I know of.
7.
I can't do anything about that because they're authorized, that's what it is. Commissioner Carey thought that he would be able to bring them to motivate them to come in. I think that was a wrong thought process because once you've given them the water, what's the motivation to come in and pay city taxes? But
I think it was more of, we're gonna get revenue off this water line that we have to take care of. If not, they're just not gonna come in because they don't want to pay city taxes. That's how I would definitely look at it. Because I think we have 5 houses, so we're gonna take care of this whole water line. We could have 15 at maybe even, and I don't think there's anywhere near 7 in the subdivision, but either way, so we're taking care of a water line for 4. 5 people. So either we're gonna get revenue off it from these other houses, or we're gonna hope their septics fail, is what we're gonna hope for, because that's the only reason we're probably gonna get them into the city.
Well, again, Tommy, that's why I'd like to put this as an
A
ordinance.
majority
and-
or
and
supermajority?
I'd like it to be supermajority, if
So
I
we
could.
might as well just not write the ordinance, because you're gonna vote no to it.
I would vote,
Like-
I would vote no. I think in my opinion, I think it's a slap in the face to every tax-paying resident if you allow somebody else to get city resources without having to pay the taxes that everybody else does. That's just my opinion. They're already there, so God bless them. They got it and they're approved, and it's a utility, and they're gonna have it for life, the ones that are already grandfathered in.
And so if they annex in, especially across the street, that means we have to run a sewer line?
So that's the problem with lot 6 and 7 that this gentleman wanted us to get. I don't have a problem with if they were to if they want to annex properties into the city to pay taxes and have water, I have no problem with that. But I truly believe his reasoning for it is there is an ordinance that, I don't think it's an ordinance, actually, I'm not sure which one it is, but there's a thing that stipulates that if you annex a property into the city, and it is within, I want to say, 200 feet or something like that, of existing sewer line, you are required to provide sewer line to that property. Well, the problem is, if you look at the map, Lot 9 and Lot 8 are not in the city. There's somebody else. He wants Lot 7 and 6. The first thing is, it's not contiguous. So he was talking about even getting a piece of property on the outside that you don't see here, and then going around to say that it's contiguous. However, that is also on the other side of a street that we don't own. And if we were required to put sewer, the purple line on your map shows where the sewer is, right? For us to get sewer to that property, we would have to go all the way around, completely, all the way around the lots that are not inside the city.
Jason?
Yes.
I don't think there's Jim, jump in if I'm wrong. I don't think there's a requirement that we have to run sewer. I think the requirement is if there is a sanitary sewer within so many feet of the property line, the property owner has to attach to the sanitary sewer, isn't?
We have to take it to the property line.
Is that in our?
Well, on Truxler, they don't have, there's septic systems all over the city that we didn't do that for. Like the new house that's getting built over on
Correct.
Indian Highway, for instance.
Correct.
It's gonna be a septic.
So
Correct.
how did we not have to run it for them?
I don't know the answers to that. There's people that have applied because the cost is too, and we approve that because we don't want to have to put the thing in there, or they've been too far away. That might have been more than the 200 feet away in the first place, but this one is not. This one is close enough because you see the corner there. The problem is we can't go through that because that lot 10 is not annexed into the city.
So we could authorize them to have a septic though. That would fix the problem.
So to me, if they wanted to annex into the city to get water for those lots, and part of that agreement was at no point in time will we ever be required to give them sanitary to that property, I would not have a problem with that. But I think the other problem was the fact that it's on the other side of the road too, was one of the other issues. If I remember part of that. Granted, this conversation was a long time, I think it was the early part of COVID. I want to say it was like March or April.
And I believe that water line is off the road. It's in the ditch.
Jason, I was
Correct.
just looking to see if I had, because I didn't realize this was coming up tonight. I know I had looked at this.
Yeah, you're at
I
the,
don't want to be saying, because I don't have an accurate recollection, but my recollection was, no, we didn't have to run sewer line to them. That the argument was we didn't want to give them water because if they wanted, if we weren't gonna give them water, because we have an ordinance that says we won't provide you with water if you're contiguous, you have to annex in to the city.
well, that was part of the problem too. Just those lots themselves are not contiguous. So that, if you remember, that's when he talked about talking with whoever owned this Papa's property over here about trying to get a piece that would go and touch back to our other lots on the other side of the street.
Which ones is 10 in the city, is
No.
no?
Nope. 10, 9, 8 is not. I want to say 15 and 13 are the only lots inside the city limits at that time. I don't think 15 is listed on this picture that we have, but 13 is. That's what this whole, the letter from Gary Carey happened, was that this was back in, oh my goodness, I even have the date here.
It's 15 and 13 are in the city, aren't they?
Correct. 13 came in on, what date was that? I thought it was here.
October 7th, 1996 was
That's
when
right.
they annexed it.
Yep. So, and that's when he gave a period of time to let people know, hey, if you're interested in getting water in the city, give us a call by this date. So, that's the two things I'm talking about. The first thing is, I'd like to put an ordinance out there that I shouldn't say prevents, I should say that gives a means for people that are outside the city to get into the water. Because there is a rate schedule for it for people, but there's no clear way how to do it. And this is how Commissioner Carey did it, 24 years ago.
So I think it should be a vote on the whole subdivision, not just each individual for, first of all, you can play favorites all day long otherwise, and then two, it's, the subdivision would be this area specific of what we would do.
So what you're saying is that somebody applies, if they wanna get into it.
The whole
then it's a
subdivision
whole
can, yeah.
subdivision. It could be one person, it could be 3 people.
Because if they would have done that in 1996, this wouldn't even be a topic right now. This would have been, that subdivision can have it, and it's based on each individual subdivision.
However you want to do it. I'd like it to be clearly defined, because right now, apparently, the only evidence we have is whoever the commissioner of streets, water, and wastewater is, just does whatever the heck they want. And I'd like to give that authority up, because I want it to be more streamlined, so it's fair for everybody.
So you're not fighting this, every 6 months or every year,
Yep.
I just think we need to put an ordinance either yea or nay.
But at least it makes it an official vote. Now, if you guys all
You
agree.
can say the council vote no, not just you.
No, I say I'll vote
Okay.
no. You guys can vote whatever you want. And if I lose because of supermajority, then so be it. I guess they get what they want. But again, my 2 cents on that is generally non-tax-paying people, I'm not going to give resources from the city because they could annex in and pay taxes.
But on the same token, if you go on.
Oh, I remember what it was.
On the
These
other
two,
side
these
of,
two lots could not annex in.
But if you remember, what he wanted to do was he wanted to get a piece of property from that Papa's property behind it to where it would touch another piece that's already in the city of Oglesby. He wanted to, that's how he wanted to get past the contiguous thing.
Well,
And then the other issue came up was that, well, now we have 2 pieces of property that are across the street and we don't own the street.
now we're getting off the water sewer connections. But
Well, it's related to the water sewer connections.
I think we should have the city attorney look into if we can do this or not before we do anything forward. And then we should also write an ordinance saying, hey, based on subdivision, we can approve them to get water. Because each subdivision, we're gonna have to run the water line to anyway. It's not gonna be, oh, we're gonna go to one house and that's it, kind of thing, too.
Yeah, because I don't know how this, I don't have any evidence of how this water line got in the first place. Because there is water line pieces that is under that road that is not owned by the city.
Commissioner Carey.
I know.
This was the reason
So,
for
so
it.
as it stands right now, what does that mean I could do? I could build $20,000 worth of water line at a time and connect up whoever the heck I wanted. That authority needs to come away.
Well, I'm guessing there's a council approval to run that whole water line.
I can't find it.
I'll start digging. I have a date now. I can look at the ordinance records from that time frame. So
All right.
well, maybe that's a good reason we should reduce the amount of money that you can get without council approval.
So then I just
Down
do,
to 10.
so then I just do $10,000 at a time of water line wherever I want.
That's right.
See the problem with that?
Let's move on.
All right.
Discussion on parking and traffic signs.
so
You got A through E here.
okay. Can I just group A, B, and E together? Those are all enforcement. That's up to Carrie, the commissioner, or
Well, B is,
Commissioner Lieski and the Public Safety Department.
Well, B is the value of the survey, but
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
well-
A and E if you want to group together, I guess.
A&E, yeah, that's more enforcement than anything.
Yeah, I reached out to Chief, and I don't know that you've had the opportunity to even see that email, but I kind of asked for what type of volumes are we seeing in citations for either the parking on the street with 2 or more inches of snow? And I know that has been enforced in the past, but I just don't know how. How many?
173 in the last 4 years.
It's more than I thought it would
One
be.
at my house.
Has there been a lot lately on those, on the new streets that have the parking only on one side? Has there been any?
That was strictly snow that I was talking about.
Okay, well, snow, okay.
Strictly snow.
But have we done any citations for parking on the wrong side of the street when it's posted?
7 in the last 4 years. It's basically asking the officers why and what they were doing in the past, was basically by complaint.
Got it.
Okay. As far as also snowfall, I did talk to Dan from the street department to kind of get an update to see if there's been a problem. He has said that the streets now that have the parking only on one side are much easier and better to be able to clean. So that is one positive.
That's helpful, yeah.
He said, though, in general, though, it's not really a huge problem. I said, obviously, there's the one that was on Walnut that was parked there for how long, and I guess the police are well aware of that, and they're working that issue. But other than that, it generally has not been a problem for snowfall, is what he said. Now, granted, he's only been out a couple times this year, but, so that was my feedback on that portion of it.
All right.
The snowfall issue that came up recently that I think is why we talked about it, is because it's not posted. In many of the locations, it's not posted. And the people who we recently cited came to the police department and said, we drove up and down both sides of the street and we can't find any signs that say that you have to move your vehicle after 2 inches of snow.
So,
In fact, we can't find any snow removal.
I think that's an Illinois thing, because I don't believe, well, I know that LaSalle doesn't have that all over town about no parking on the street after with 2 or more inches of snow, yet they do enforce it as well.
let me ask Andrew, because I know it's in our ordinances that we have that don't have that. If it's, does that mean it has to be marked on every sign, or what's the ruling on that,
Yeah,
you
let me,
think?
let me take a look at that. I mean, generally speaking, you have to give some notice to the public that, that they're in violation of the ordinance, I mean, you can't not post the speed limit sign and then have the police department go and say, well, you were going 45 on Columbia and the speed limit is 30 or 35. And somebody says, well, it didn't say that, then you would have a problem with that. I'm not sure how there could be something that allows for the snow, and I'm not positive about that. But, so let me take a look at that and try to have an answer for
Okay.
you on Monday.
I appreciate that. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. So the next thing I was curious about is, because I've heard varying opinions about this, and I'd like to know the council's input on this. Review of the value of surveying no parking modifications. So I have heard from other people that they don't want me to survey what people want. I find that very interesting, that someone's giving me an opinion that they don't want me to go out and look for people's opinions. So what did you guys think? I know we talked about it last time before I did it. Obviously, there's more signs we want to put up. There's more signs that people talk to me about different streets they want to add to this. Do you think we should be surveying for that to do future changes, or should we not just go ahead and do it? Because, I mean, the overall response was go ahead and do it
I think
anyways.
we should do it based on public safety. So the reason we did first and whatever the heck other streets it was is because the ambulance couldn't get through and the fire truck couldn't get through.
Mhm.
Again, so public safety wise is why I think we should do it. I don't think we should do it when a neighbor doesn't like that there's people parked on both sides of the road, or
So,
that they're gonna have to back out and there's gonna be a car behind
so
them or
that's-
something along
And if you
those
So-
lines.
survey them and you go ahead and do it anyway,
so
there's
that,
that dissatisfaction.
so there's that, so the thing, if you remember, was there was an overwhelming majority that said they wanted to do it. The other part of the survey, though, was when there wasn't a clear definition of which side had like more fire hydrants and things like that, which side of the street was more beneficial to residents. That's where the opinion part came in a little bit, and that influenced the decision, because the funny thing is, the people that I got calls from that are upset, most of them aren't upset the fact that we did no parking on one side of the street. They just didn't want it to be on their side, right? So I did get some feedback on that. There's not a perfect answer for that.
I think we should just go every street north or every street south.
Well, every street's a little.
East, west, that's what I mean.
The problem is, every street is a little bit different based on where like one side might have more fire hydrants than the other and stuff like that. So that's why there's a difference between, because if you look at First, Second, and Third, Third Street, I believe the no parking is on the south side, and First and Second, I believe the no parking is on the north side. I think that's how it is. I should probably verify
We
that
should
for
just
us.
kind of try to streamline this, because we've how many streets in Oglesby, though, is how I feel about it.
Well, the ones I
We're
streamed.
counting fire hydrants that eventually, hopefully, we get replaced,
Well, the other thing that went into a factor is, if I want to say Glenn and Dale, they were based on the fact that they already had a no parking this side of street from the corner to the first alleyway. And I believe they were different between which one was on the east side and which one was the west side. So I just continued that same, for that reason. And I do have somebody, I don't know if it's Glenn or Dale, somebody said they're the only person that has a house on this street and they want it moved to the other side. I got to verify if that's the case, because the funny thing is, they said they're the only one, and I got one response, and they said they were okay with it. So unless somebody filled out the survey incorrectly, I don't, is it worth changing anything? Now, so that's the other question with this. Does anybody feel anything needs to be changed, what we already modified? I already had some people come back to talk to me about stuff. I don't know if anybody's been reaching out to you guys about things like that.
No.
I've not heard anything.
So is it your guys' opinion that I should probably not survey for any future parking?
At this point, I wouldn't do,
Okay?
The only thing on here is the parking during snowfalls of 2 inches or more. That's been a standard policy in the city for years.
but it's just not posted, Don.
I know,
Well,
but when I worked at the police department, we had people who'd come in and question it.
Mhm.
And we were told just to give them a copy of the ordinance. It supposedly covered everything.
Yeah, I wanna take a look at that. That-
Yeah,
that
we're
could be-
gonna
I'm not
investigate
sure
that.
whether that
You
is
know,
good enough or
I'm
not.
not saying that we couldn't, if we've got a potential snow,
Oh, the
of
street
2
sweeper?
inches or no,
Yeah.
hey, remind the citizens, don't park on the street.
Okay.
Yeah, and of
Well, how
course,
about we look at that, and Jim, is there a possibility you can get us maybe during the old business portion of next Monday's meeting?
Yeah, I'll try to have an answer.
Excellent. So if that's the case, then if we're not gonna go out for survey, I have a list of streets that I'm looking to add to that for no parking this side of the street.
Because of public safety or?
Because of public safety and traffic flow, that they're very narrow as well. I got a lot of responses on surveys that would say something like, what about Magnol? What about Maple? What about this street as well that's just as thin? Again, I was only focusing on the 7 busiest streets that were thin. I did not think about the side streets as well, so I wanted to start with that. So if we want to expand this into other ones, I can do that. And if nobody has an issue with that, I will get working on an ordinance and putting together those street names
I
together.
would just say to investigate how much, so I'm guessing most of these areas have the single stall garages with the very narrow driveways. So if we keep pushing these cars farther and farther back, where are these people gonna park? Is gonna
Right.
eventually become the issue as well.
and getting in and out of their narrow driveway.
Yes.
Well, so when I reviewed these, I went through on a weekend and weekdays, and there was, none of these streets were ever anything that was more than 50% capacity ever done. So, because that was my concern of, if you go to a street and you have massive parking on both sides, and you're gonna take it away from one side, you're gonna have a problem. So all the feedback I've ever gotten from any resident wasn't that there wasn't enough parking available. They were upset because now they gotta carry their groceries from the other side of the street instead. And I don't have a great answer for that, because somebody's gonna be disadvantaged. And the complaint was never that, hey, we really appreciate, I really don't wanna have easy driving through my street. I never got a single complaint about that.
But if you're unloading, you can pull up on the other side. By the time they get there, you should be unloaded with your groceries, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna
I
tell
might be
somebody.
pushing it, but.
I got you. Can you imagine if somebody got pulled over by a cop because they're unloading their I don't think that's gonna happen.
I doubt it, but you never know.
It's a good point. I should have thought of that when they called. Okay, so I'll put together some streets for that, and I'll have a thing together. The other part of this was, so last time we only did stuff with parking signs. The other thing is, I have been made aware of potential traffic signs and traffic flow changes. For example, there is several three-way stops inside the city that are uncontrolled intersections. For those, I believe a traffic study has to be done to modify those, though. So I want to get that done. The only other thing I'd like to loosen up a little bit is the road that goes on down to Dickinson House is very strange. There's parts where it's a straight drive-through, and then there's a stop on that side, and then, to me, if you're gonna have that lane that goes down to the Dickinson House as a circle, I would rather make it to where that is a no stop all the way down to the Dickinson House, and the cross streets are the stops.
I feel like the reason that stop sign's probably there is because young youth might be drag racing down Dale.
So the only,
Yeah, but you don't.
I'm
have
just
any-
gonna go out on a limb here because I was young once.
so
you
so
know.
the issue I
I
have with,
lived in that area.
so the issue with, I don't know which street it is, I don't know if it's First or Second or which one, but one of them, it's just the exact opposite, to where the stop is on Dale, and then the next one, it's the drive, it's the
Yeah,
straight
Third-
through.
Yeah.
It's
Third
a-
Street has the
Third,
stop.
yeah.
Yeah, it's-
Second has the.
Yeah, so
the other
so
way.
that's why I'd like to make it uniform, whatever one we do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna just make the change, I'm gonna ask with
okay.
Carrie's permission, ask the police chief if we can do a traffic study for those areas before we make a modification. But so those are
Now is not the good time, though, for that traffic study, because you don't see people going down to the baseball games this time of
See,
year.
there's another.
Well, I
like-
think the traffic
know.
study is based on, like, police reports and things that we have from, I don't think they're, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if the traffic study means they're actually out there looking at the
I just hope we don't have to
intersection.
move to
That
speed
one
bumps
I'll
is my
defer to
thing
the
here.
chief, because I just know they're required to be done. I don't know, you know. what they-
Okay, well, we'll look
Because
into
usually
that.
when they do the straightaways, then the next thing that comes is, oh, we should put a speed bump in because everyone's
Right.
flying down the road. So
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't
I'd
wanna do
prefer
that.
stop signs and speed bumps.
Well, I would rather,
It's residential, they
Yeah.
shouldn't be traveling fast.
well, I mean, yeah, and if it ends up being.
And
a
it's
pro-
not
if-
like someone's watching to count 3 seconds if they stopped all the way.
No,
too.
I mean, if it ends up being a problem, I would recommend, well, apparently people can't be responsible enough, we'll put four-way stops in for all of them then.
Well, that's where I thought that was going. I was worried that way
Well,
too.
so, I mean, we could, was that what you'd rather do? I'd rather make it a
No.
straight through.
I think everything's happy. Change makes,
All right.
problems.
All right, those are the only things I had.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
we got old business. I got something that, actually, put, Amy, distributed out. I had contacted Heredia from the valley about possibility of, doing some murals, for Seneca Square. I'm gonna try to hook up and see, you know, this is kind of a plan, you know, what we could put up. We're not looking to spend a ton of money, but, still in the TIF, we can use TIF money. You know, whether you put some arrows up, tables and umbrellas with pavers. We need some kind of a lighting. Maybe Mark can take a look at, some decorative lighting or whatever it is that we could come up with.
So I only have 2 questions, especially with the building that this one's drawn on. Is the owner interested in doing this? And secondly, is the building structurally sound enough that if we put it up, it's not gonna be down in 5 years?
Henry's is structurally.
Yeah, well, no, I'm talking about this other building, yeah. I believe Kenny's is.
Jim said that he would go along with it, but then I haven't been able to talk with him.
Okay.
I don't recognize some of the things that are in this picture.
Like the Thomas the Train Engine was my one major issue. I don't know why that got on there, but.
I don't know.
And again, I think we'd probably debate on what's on there too, but
Actually,
it's just a
we gave
theory.
him some old pictures, he took some,
Mhm.
pictures around, that we have up.
Right,
You know, I'm sure it'd be a work in progress, and we would all want input from from people.
I think it's a
With
great,
that, to move along, because, we're getting close to 2 hours, public public comments. And, we haven't anybody call in, so, let's go to commissioner reports.
I have nothing to report tonight, I believe.
As you know, we had a shooting event here a couple weeks ago, and that one police vehicle will be out of commission for I don't know how long, because it's sequestered, at least through the trial. I can tell you, as being a previous risk manager, I've had things sequestered for years. Even if something happened very quickly, we don't know how much damage is done to that vehicle, so we may be looking at replacing the vehicle. And lo and behold, the truck that we had ordered several months ago just came in. And the dealer said that, you know, he will hold it till tomorrow. And I know we can't vote on anything here tonight, but I'm just throwing that out there, that that a vehicle, the truck is available, and was a very reasonable price. I think 26 or 27.
And so is it identical to the current one we have, or is it different?
I think it's a little different, isn't
The
it?
only difference is, the fenders have the storage units in them.
Okay.
So, and
Mechanically,
we're going-
they're pretty much the
and
same,
we're going
okay.
that way because the one squad car is
We
shot.
we don't know how much true damage is done to it, because right now it's being sequestered for the, you know, we don't have access to it, let's put it that way.
And it's on hold until the court case is over,
And that
just
could be
like the bow and
indefinitely.
arrow Jeep is still
3
back
years
behind
ago,
ours,
yes.
so.
So,
Can we use drug money for that?
yes, we
Yeah.
can. We did for the last one.
Yes.
So, I mean, we can't.
You mean try it
obviously,
money?
we can't
Yeah, that's probably a better.
Probably a better way to say tried it money instead of, but I get you.
We
Drug
can't vote on it,
forfeiture.
but I wanted to put
Yeah.
that out there.
I didn't realize it.
I do have a couple other things, though, and if you read the local newspaper, both items are in tonight's paper. The first one is that back in December, hospitals started to get in the COVID vaccine and began immunizing hospital workers. We are rapidly, really, moving forward to phase 1B, where we are opening it up then to more people within the community. Those people specifically would be those that are 65 and older, those who work in other first responders or frontline businesses like police, fire, ambulance, the people in manufacturing. There's a list of probably about a dozen different qualifiers, but a lot of people that would be qualifying for getting the immunization. LaSalle County Health Department has taken the lead on how to coordinate this event, so your doctor's office will not be getting in the vaccine to give it to you in the doctor's office, nor will the hospitals. It will all run through LaSalle County. LaSalle County has on their website, which is lasallecounty.org, a little icon for the COVID sign, COVID vaccine. You click on the icon, and you would complete this small form, which will put you then as an interested person in getting the vaccine. The form contains, they ask you for your first and last name, they ask you for your phone number, they ask you for your email, and then they ask, how do you qualify? So, you know, somebody, Don might say he's over 65, that's his qualifier. Or somebody else might say, I work in manufacturing, that's my qualifier. And then they just have a signature, electronic signature at the very bottom. That will put you into a list of the first wave of community immunizations. I've heard that the immunizations will be ready to go potentially as early as next week. I kind of doubt that, but I really don't doubt before this month is over that we'll be seeing that wave. So that's exciting news. I strongly encourage everybody in the community who falls into those categories to go to lasallecounty.org and sign up for your interest in having it done, because one of the ways to beat this COVID is having some herd immunity, and that will help us to get things back open and back to business as usual. what they are saying is after the second vaccine, you will be 95% effective against against COVID, and those antibodies should kick in fully by 2 weeks following the second dose. So, very good news. The other is not so good news. I had information here from the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police that came out today. And I really thought when Chief Hayes sent this to me that I was reading the date wrong, because I couldn't believe that this passed through the Senate. There is a bill out there. It was House Bill, 163, now it looks like House Bill 3653. But here is the statement that has been made by the Illinois State Chiefs of Police. In the dark of night, Illinois legislators made Illinois less safe. More than 112,000 citizens so far have signed a petition to oppose the community endangering law enforcement legislation being rammed through the General Assembly. But how did the Senate respond to those constituent concerns? By introducing a 764-page amendment at 3:51 a.m. and shoving it through in the middle of the night before the people voting on it even had a chance to read it. We had been working in good faith with the Attorney General on a bill that would make great strides to modernize law enforcement, but that legislation was dumped into this monster bill, and the result is a betrayal of the public trust that gives many more advantages to criminals than the police. It ties the hands of police officers while pursuing suspects and making arrests, and allows criminals to run free while out on bail. The legislation includes no way to pay for any of those law-abiding, citizen-threatening measures, so taxpayers will have to pay extra for the privilege of being crime victims. We applaud the senators who had fortitude to vote in favor of public safety by voting against this bill. We strongly implore the members of the House to listen to their constituents' concerns and avoid going down the dangerous path the Senate took, and refuse to concur on this draconian legislation that makes communities less safe. And just in a nutshell, how the bill first came through, some of the things that they were talking about would be eliminating qualified immunity for police officers, and expressly applies punitive, unbalanced penalties to the police officers while denying them typical and customary protection. Creates new state law, right of action against law enforcement for alleged civil rights violations, eliminates any use of force by a police officer. I want to underline any. Requires an officer not to arrest a person who walks away or flees if the officer knows the person.
Also, if I can make a point here.
Yes,
I
sir.
think it includes defunding police
Yes.
departments too.
Yes,
And another thing, I don't know if this is correct or not, but isn't there something out there now where they're asking the officers to get their own insurance for liability?
yes, that's what we said here.
There you
And
go.
it
Yeah.
eliminates bail and basically
Right.
mandates their release. So we put after you arrest them, then you put them back on the streets to commit more crime until their court date comes up.
If they
Defunds municipalities, eliminates all collective bargaining, mandates body cams, which is gonna cost $65,000 a year for storage and maintenance for Oglesby.
Just for storage.
For storage, allows officers, and this kills me too, to be punished for unverified anonymous complaints.
That's asinine and ridiculous.
Well, I thought it was too, and I had Amy send it out to everybody
Yeah.
on the council. I encouraged people to, reach out to Senator Rezin and to Lance Yednock to, at least express where you stand on this issue. And I thought because of how it was written, it surely couldn't go through, but it did.
It passed through the House today.
Yeah, it's a
That's what
law
I was
now.
just trying to look
Yeah.
at
Did it
Google.
go
to
through
see
the
if-
It passed
yeah,
through the
I was trying
House.
to look on my phone to see if I,
60-50, it made it through the
Both our representatives did vote no to it, but it did pass the House as well today.
House. It's sitting on the governor's desk now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
His last statement was that he
Yeah, he will sign
Wow.
it.
He was working with them, he said, to build that legislation.
I'm so fearful of how things are gonna be moving forward and for the safety of our officers as well as for the safety of our community.
And they had no law enforcement input when they wrote that
The-
law, from what I understand as
Correct.
well.
The city of Oglesby sent letters to both the senator and representative in our opposition to the bill.
Again, they both voted no, but it still passed, so.
Right, well, I'm thankful, reached out to them, but I've
Yes.
also reached out to the Springfield as well, so it's just horrifying to me.
As far as that vehicle that you mentioned, for the 26,000, was that a time constraint that they, could we wait till Monday to make a decision on that?
He wants to sell it.
Can you not wait till Monday?
He did order it for us, but in the meantime, what happened was, we were pushing him because the order was taking so long. So, he said, I got another one sitting here that somebody didn't buy. Will you take that one? It doesn't have the storage units on the
Hmm.
fence. We said, yeah, we'll take it. So we took that one. So now, we called him today to see if they had any, and he says, yours came in today, but I didn't think you wanted it because you bought the other one. I'm gonna sell it. It'll go
I
away
think,
tomorrow.
I think the
Well-
question here, though, is if you put down $100 earnest money and
Yeah.
say, could you wait until
Yeah.
Tuesday morning?
Or pay him to hold it or something.
Something like
along
that.
those
Because
lines.
can't we do a vote on if
Can
it's
we
for an
do a
item
vote
for
on it
operational
Monday?
emergency needs, that we can do it all in one with supermajority, I think? Doesn't that work like that?
But it would have to be on your agenda.
If we put it on, if we
Next
put it on
Monday.
Monday's
Yeah.
agenda,
Yeah,
and we get it approved via supermajority, you could purchase it in one meeting, right?
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that has to be held over
No.
anyway.
No,
just a
it's,
It's a
as long as you
purchase.
approve the
Purchase.
purchase.
Okay.
It's just a purchase. I don't think it has to be held over.
Approve if we're gonna purchase it through Trident?
Ah.
Yeah, I don't know how Trident funds work compared to regular funds.
I know how they work, I'm just saying, I didn't know, I know that we can do that, but I didn't know if. the
It's
city
still
owns
gonna
it.
come to the city, though, to pay for all the,
No, we'll take, we got.
We'll work
it all through Trident.
All right, well,
That's great, chief, I agree.
yeah.
All right.
Well, I think still, the city needs to authorize the expenditure. But you can do that at Monday's meeting.
Okay.
I suppose, as a practical matter, if you had to sign the paperwork tomorrow, as long as everybody's aware of it, and you're gonna authorize it at Monday's meeting.
Yes.
you
Okay.
could tell them to go ahead and
And
sign the
Trident,
paperwork.
Trident will pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, seizure money will pick it up.
Yeah. The drug fund.
All right.
Okay,
So I did put out a letter to Cedar Creek residents, again, the ones that haven't complied with the sanitary sewer inspections for the possible illegal connections. The reason I did that was because of COVID and stuff, everything took so long. It was been over a year since I sent the last letter. So I wanted to, before we start going through the legal process of how we're going to get in to get these inspections done, I wanted to send one more letter so that way people weren't surprised. And I'm actually glad I did. Apparently, there was several people that stated they never got the first or the second letter even.
That's what I would probably say too, even if I got the letter, but
Well,
continue on.
well, okay, they,
I know we got problems with the mail, Jason.
oh, that's another thing by the mail. I have some good news. I have some good news to tell in a second here. So, I forgot about that. So I think about 6 of them now called in. So whether, if they're lying, they agreed to get an inspection. So we had about 6 more that said they're gonna get their inspection, so I'm glad we sent the letter. So very soon though, once we get these inspections done or lined up, I am gonna go through the process that we're gonna have to get in there, because I made a promise, we are gonna have every home inspected. You know, there's people out there that live in that subdivision that spend up to $5,000 of their own money to get the problem that they were responsible to get their things fixed. So it would be unfair to not complete it for everybody. On the other side, I spoke with GTI today because we didn't get our check in yet, and I got the word that they put it in the mail on Monday. So quite literally, I get to say, the check
in the mail.
the check is in the mail.
Oh, boy.
Forgot about that. Last
Hopefully
thing.
they track that one.
There you go. So hopefully we'll have that soon. So anyways,
it's a big check.
it's a big check. So I did want to talk about what Carrie mentioned on about that I found out early this morning. What I also had heard, and this is what's really upsetting me, apparently the reason Lance Yednock is a co-sponsor of the bill is because he originally had this bill as something that dealt with reduction of prescription drug costs. And for whatever reason, at 3 a.m., a new draft of this thing came out at 764 pages, dropped it sometime after 3 a.m., 4 a.m. they're debating on it, and 5 a.m. they're approving it. I cannot, and this is all 8 hours before the inauguration, before people are about to leave office. I think that is absolutely disgusting that you have people in a lame duck session taking advantage to try to push some things through that they don't have to face the consequences of once they're in office. I think that's shameful. I don't have a solution for it, except I really wish that there was some legislation that prevented lame duck sessions from approving things. I wish that they'd go through whatever process they do in lame duck and make it pending. That way, it takes the new administration to rubber stamp it to see if it's any good, because it's just pathetic that we have this happen. So hopefully there'll be a answer in the future. That's all I got.
I have nothing tonight.
Mine is gonna be short, and it's all good news. The IMUA Scholarship Essay Program competition is open. Information can be obtained on the city website and/or at the clerk's office. The deadline for submitting applications and essays is Friday, March 12th. Competition is only open to high school seniors. The IMEA will offer 4 $1,000 scholarships. I want to thank Bootsy Corporation for their generous donation of $3,000 toward our food pantry at City Hall. The city of Oglesby depends on the kindness and generosity of donors to support its causes, which provide the necessities to the less fortunate in our community. The support that the city receives is most gratifying, and we thank them all. And we've had a number of $500 anonymous donations to our food pantry.
Awesome.
We are looking at a recycling this spring, and that's all I have, and I'll entertain a motion
To adjourn.
to adjourn. And incidentally, I won't read the letter that I sent to Bootsy, but I really appreciate that, and it has helped people that need it. You've all done a great job.
Is there
So
a
I'll enter-
reason this was at our desk as well?
Pardon?
Is there a reason that this timesheet example?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, we're looking at to revising our timesheets. Like to have your input. I got one from a utility company. I think it doesn't fit us. We got one from one of our neighboring cities. What we're looking at doing is not only have the foreman in charge or whatever, or the sign the timesheets, but we'd like the commissioners to sign it, and then the mayor. This way, we know what's going on. One of the reasons I looked at it is also because, is there a better way to track the work in the TIF and how we can do some things? It's just, a way to be more transparent and accountable.
I sent an email out to Herb Klein today to request if there was a recommendation, he'd recommend how we annotate the timesheets that we could better track for TIF recs and things like that, if we were to put hours against stuff like that. So hopefully I'll get an answer on that soon.
All right.
Okay, you entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Albright.
Aye.
Cullinan.
All right.
Curran.
Aye.
Mieski.
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.